This is Chapter 57, Community Ecology. In the previous chapter, we studied populations, how species interact with their environment. In this chapter, we are going to look at communities, which are all the different living things that you would find in a particular habitat. All the plants, animals, insects, how they interact with each other and with the environment they live in. When you're looking at a community, you have to look at its diversity first. How many different species are present? The more species, the better. You have to look at species composition. In other words, how many individuals and what are their ages in each species. The more individuals, the better, and the diversity of ages, better. Primary productivity, of course, are plants, and you have to look at how many plants are there and how many species of plants. The more plant diversity and the more plants you have just in terms of numbers, the more energy that you make and the more herbivores and carnivores that can be supported. If you live within a community, you are either an autotroph, which means you make your own food, or a heterotroph, which means that you consume other things for your food. Within the heterotrophs, you have the primary consumers. They're the organisms that eat the plants, the herbivores. You have the secondary consumers. They eat the herbivores. Those are the carnivores. And the tertiary consumers, they eat both herbivores and carnivores. Outside of the herbivores and the carnivores, you have the scavengers. They eat what the carnivores left behind. Then you have the detritivores. These are the things that eat what is left behind. The detritus feeders, they eat the fur and the bone marrow and the tendons of the dead. They also eat the claws and the shells and the skin that was discarded by the living. The decomposers eat the teeny tiny bits that are left over in the soil after the detritus feeders are done. These are the earthworms and bacteria. When they're finished, all you have left are nitrates and phosphates and those nutrients that the plants will use for growth. This is a trophic level pyramid. In this case, the primary producers, or the plants, are the base. The primary consumers are the first trophic level. Secondary consumers are the second trophic level, and so on. If you look at the left, you have units of energy. These are the units of energy that are found within each organism at that level. In this example, plants have 1,000 units of energy, but the locusts that ate them only have 100 units of energy. This is called the 10% rule. What that means is that no matter how much energy the organism consumes, they only get 10% of what was actually available. The other 90% was spent in the process of getting the food. So, for example, my frog had to spend energy to hop to the locust, to chase the locust, to catch the locust, to eat the locust, to digest the locust. And so 90 of the 100 units in the locust were used to get the food. 10% actually goes into the frog's cells. When we're talking about an organism's niche, this is how they live or what they do in their system. It's not where they live. They don't live in trees or their niche isn't on the ground. Are they predators or are they prey? Are they carnivores or scavengers? Do they need a lot of rain or a little rain? Do they have a wide temperature range or a narrow temperature range? Within their niche, you have two forms. The fundamental niche, which is the ideal world. Everything is perfect. The best temperature, the best food, the best shelter. The ideal world. The realized niche is what they actually got. After the weather possibly changed, it's hotter than normal, it's wetter than normal, and competition, how much food they got after they had to compete for it, where their nesting site is after they had to compete for it. It's the real world. All organisms must compete. That means that their realized niches are always smaller than their fundamental niche. If you're in a community, you have two types of competition. Intraspecific, that means you're competing with members of your own species, and interspecific, that means you're competing with members of a different species. If you're competing with a member of a different species, you may also experience exploitive competition. That means that one of you is better than the other. You have equal resources, you have equal access to those resources, but one of you gets to it better or uses it more efficiently once you get it. For example, a tiger and a lion are both hunting gazelle. They are both hunting the same size herd of gazelle. They're both the same distance away. Both are large cats with strong jaws, sharp claws. The difference is that the tiger is used to hunting solo, where the lion is used to hunting in a group. That puts the lion at a disadvantage. That means that the tiger is able to exploit that resource of food better than the lion, and so he's actually going to do better in that competition. Animals spend a lot of energy genetically and evolutionary-wise to avoid competition. One way is called resource partitioning, and that means to change in a way so that you do not have to compete with another organism or another species for a particular resource. Morphological resource partitioning means that your species has changed physically. For example, bats eat nectar and pollen from plants. In order to avoid competition, the Mexican free-tailed bat nose has grown much longer. They are the only bat whose nose is long enough to reach the nectar in that particular cactus flower. Temporal is a time change. That means that you don't hunt at the same time as everybody else does. So for the owls, they hunt at night, while most of the other raptors hunt during the day. Spatial means you're at a different place. So in my picture, I have 4 anoles that have resource partitioned the tree, which means actually the insects on that tree. Some are at the top, some are at the middle, some are at the bottom. And so they don't have to compete for the insects in that particular area. Predator-prey relationships. Predation is often considered as a negative thing because you don't like to watch the baby gazelle get eaten by the tiger. But predation is actually good for the prey because it removes the sick, the elderly, and that means that the resources are available for the young, reproducing adults, and that makes that particular population stronger. In response to predation, you also have coevolution. Coevolution means that as the prey changes, the predator changes. So for example, the gazelle runs faster, and so then the tiger begins to run faster. The gazelle changes coloring over time and it hides in the grasses better, and so the tiger's eyesight improves. Each species improves because of coevolution. We'll talk about coevolution in relationship to the monarch butterfly pictured here in class. Prey often avoids competition and being preyed upon through morphological defenses. In a plant, morphological are spines, stickers, and thick bark. Chemical defenses are toxins that are found within the plant that will either make the plant taste bad or will actually be poisonous to an animal that will eat it. Animal prey does the same. Morphologically, if you look on the left and you're looking at the scorpion, it's got a shell, it's got claws to protect itself, and it also has a chemical defense in the stinger because it's poisonous. The same is for the frog on the right. That's a poison dart frog. When poison dart frogs are frightened or agitated, they sweat poison. The other thing that this prey species has is called warning coloration or aposematic coloration. This bright pattern or bright color tells potential predators, I am poisonous. If you eat me, you may be sorry. Another way that animals protect themselves from predators is through mimicry. Mimicry is to pretend to be something that you're not. And we'll look at these pictures more in class. A specific type of mimicry is called Batesian or Batesian mimicry. In this mimicry, you have a harmless organism that pretends to be poisonous or dangerous. So the top picture, we have a moth that has the black and white, or black and yellow and white combination colors as the wasp on the left. The bottom, we have a flower fly. No poison, no stingers. It only looks like the dangerous honeybee. Then you have Mullerian mimicry. In this case, you have more than one poisonous species, and they, over evolutionary time, begin to look like each other. They begin to mimic each other in color and pattern. So if you look here, you have 8 butterflies that all look similar in color and in pattern. So if a predator should eat the top left butterfly and get sick, all of the other ones look similar enough that they will be avoided. Another type of species interaction is called symbiosis. Symbiosis is a semi-permanent or permanent relationship between two species. The first is commensalism. In commensalism, one organism is helped and the other is neither hurt nor helped. It's just kind of neutral. My example is Spanish moss hanging on the tree. The Spanish moss gets its moisture from the atmosphere, so the higher off it is, the better. It doesn't hurt the tree, it doesn't dig its roots into the tree, it just hangs there. So it benefits and the tree is neutral. In mutualism, both the plant and the animal, in this case, are receiving benefits from their relationship. This is an acacia tree and ants. The ants eat the sap within the tree for food, and they defend their acacia tree as a territory. So anything that would come and graze upon the acacia tree is stung, and so the acacia tree gets protection. Parasitism, one organism is harmed, the other one is helped. So the host is harmed. So in this case, if you look on the left, you have mistletoe. Mistletoe harms its host, which is the tree, by digging its roots into the tree. It eats the sap of the tree and opens the bark up to insects and bacteria. On the right, you have the caterpillar wasp, and it actually lays its eggs in the caterpillar, and then when the eggs hatch, they eat the caterpillar alive. The last thing that we'll talk about is succession and disturbance. Disturbance means to change an environment in a drastic form. Primary succession means the return of the plants and the animals on a site that has no soil. For example, a new lava flow or a mountain slide where all the soil has gone away. Secondary succession is the return of plants and animals to an environment that's been changed, but the soil and the seeds and the things within the soil remain. That would be harvesting, hurricane, forest fire. In the primary succession, seeds come into the area by way of an animal passing through, or they're blown in. If that plant is able to grow in rocky soil, or basically rocks without any organic matter, then it will begin to break up the rocks and slowly turn it into soil. Eventually other plants move in, grasses, bushes, trees. Secondary succession, the soil is already there. So all that happens are the seeds that are remaining in the soil will sprout, roots will grow, and again you get grasses and then bushes and then trees. Over time, if nothing changes, you get what's called a climax community. In a climax community, the plants and the animals are in perfect balance with the environment. Nothing changes. This is a good thing in that the plants and the animals and the environment are in a perfect balance. In a sense, it's a bad thing because usually climax communities have a smaller number of organisms. Those organisms that live there are usually larger, like big giant trees and big giant shrubs. And they also have smaller number of organisms of different species, so diversity goes down, which means that should there be a disease come through, those climax communities can fall apart. So actually, communities that are within succession are actually more stable because they are more diverse. This is a picture of succession that occurred following Mount St. Helens eruption, and we'll talk about that in class. And then the last thing that we'll talk about just quickly are animals. Animals come in last because they have to have the plant material to consume. And also as the vegetation changes, the animals that live there come and go because each animal is specific to the plants that are living there. Plants that have to have animals for pollination or to spread their seeds will take longer because they have to wait for the plants that are the food source to grow, for the animal to come in so that their seeds can actually be spread. So succession is a good thing. Disturbance is a good thing. And this is the end of Chapter 57, Community Ecology.